Hi, so Greg here. Today I'm going to show you how to review a paraglider. So this is something from Advance. Literally just got it out the bag. Advance Omega XALPS 2. Let's check out how we can tell what this glider is like very quickly. So just a quick inspection down the leading edge. You can see it's got a very slight shark nose, and it's a very thin leading edge. You can see that it's very narrow that way, so it's not particularly deep. I mean, it's built for performance and speed. Quick check in there. Okay, like the previous version, it's super light, so it wants to blow away in the wind. Makes it a little tricky on the launch site. Okay, having a look at the risers, you can see what we've got here is a new system, this sort of speed brake system where you're pulling the back riser down and it's going to be able to give you some rear riser steering while you accelerate it with that. Okay, you've got some new little toggles for the rear risers, which is lovely. Being a super light glider, they've opted for these little string mailons. Not my personal favorite. If you've ever tried to change the trim on this sort of setup, it's a real faff. I prefer the little steel mailons. It really doesn't add much weight, but hey, you're trying to go for x-alps racing here and you're getting rid of all the weight possible, so that's what you have to compromise with. The leading edge lines are coated. They feel like they're almost sheathed, but they're not. They're just coated with this sort of waxy coating. Then the other ones are the normal sort of Kevlar. I mean, that's your line stack there. Oh, let's add the brakes in. Hardly anything there, eh? That's just one riser, but gives you an idea. Not much to it. Okay. Okay, so far seems similar to the Omega XALPS 1 in that your tips definitely like to cravat on the ground. I mean, that was a really nasty, bad layout, but let's see. And it's trying to jump up on its own. So I think it's got the same sort of characteristics as the XALPS 1. I mean, I've just got the brakes on here, and the glider's trying to rise on its own. I mean, I've got brakes pretty deep in there. As soon as I release the brakes, the glider's just floating up on its own. I'm not using any risers there. Okay, it's a very nice characteristic when you've got light winds and tricky launches, but when the wind's strong, it can be a real challenge. The moment feels very similar to the XALPS 1. You can see it doesn't really want to drop back down to the ground. I'm just leaning into wind here. And it's got that beautiful kiting ability. Similar to the XALPS 1, where the tip stall and it bends back quite hard. I would say even more so in this one. Like that. Makes it a little challenging because it does want to snake around. Bear in mind, I'm just trying to hold it in place. If she just wants to fly. Nice, but definitely for an experienced pilot. If anything, slightly more demanding than the one. Okay, so now I would check out the stall point. I'm on the ground here. Let's get it up to flying speed. Down on the brakes, and I'm just trying to feel what kind of resistance it's got and whether it's got a sharp stall with little warning or whether you can really be quite heavy-handed. That's properly up to flying speed. Still not up to flying speed yet. There we go. Alright, brakes are on. Right. No problem. Fairly early stall compared to the x-alps 1. I think the x-alps 1's got a little bit more tolerance there. Oh, that's really smooth. Okay, what I'm feeling is a very smooth cornering. It's a very linear, smooth feeling on the brake. What I'm doing is a little bit of weight shifting. I can see some birds over there. A little bit of braking, I'm getting a tight, smooth corner. So I'm really liking that turn already. That's only, you know, second or third turn on the wing. Leaning there. Turning, it really feels like it holds onto that thermal. Doesn't go through it, and then you're sort of fighting to get it round. It's good connection with the wing instantly. Okay, I'm getting a pretty quick response from the wing. And I'm getting more of a feeling of being able to cup the thermal in my hand as I'm getting into the core. A slightly sweeter turn than the x-alps 1. Quite a lot of movement, a lot of roll movement. This is helping me to identify which line to follow on the way out here. Okay, it's very weak lift, so it's really difficult to analyze where the thermal is, but this wing is definitely giving me a feeling. Like there, I'm starting to angle across, and now I can feel it straight ahead of me. There we go. And I'm flying just with the outside brake off. I normally have a bit of brake on to slow it down. Just trying to analyze how much energy it's got. It feels slightly more speed acceleration than the x-alps 1 when I'm thermaling. Okay, let's try the bar out just because we can. So I'm going to go into pulleys locked there. Okay, there I'm trying to give some very aggressive sharp turns, and I can feel that the wing is not really going beyond a certain point. It's a typical advance reaction. You can get lots of freedom up to a certain point, and then there's a balance that kicks in. Some people don't like that, some people do. Depends what you want. And I find on a glider for hike and fly racing, you definitely want some balance. It stops you getting tired. You can see that's a really small core I'm working here. I can't even 360 in it. I'm just going to start turning here maybe. Okay, wing's holding itself together nicely in this really rubbishy air. Now I should be able to connect with Carlo. So now we can just go on to hands up. Okay, these little bars on the risers are very comfy, very nice to hold. Really cool, good position. Okay, that's cranking it round. I'm holding it in as much as I can. You can see that tip is bending back, but it's actually continuing to fly. So I'm always trying to push the limit on the glider when I'm reviewing it. There's no point just flying it around nicely. Of course it's going to fly nicely. You want to try and see how far can it go before it spins in the corners. Okay, I'm getting a fairly high level of feedback from this wing. It's definitely giving me all of the information about the character of the air. It's not dull at all. It's quite like choppy, the air. And the wing's transferring all of that. Okay, so now I can test the spin point properly. We're coming out of the corner now, and I put in too much brake on that side. Let it level out, and then put in the brake on the corner. There you can see it spin back. That's very, very easy to control that. Okay, we'll do one on the other side. Climbing out turn. So I do a sort of a half a turn, let it climb out, and try and put it in there. There you can see it's just a really nice feeling in the corner. It's not pulling the stall into the rest of the wing. So that's always something that I check, is that extreme cornering feeling. Another thing I also check is the stall point. You can just fly along with deep brakes like this and just feel how much tolerance it's got. I've got lots of brake on now, and it's holding itself together, and there's the stall, and I'm putting my hands up now. You can see it rotated there a little bit. So that's something to be careful of. That's on a higher class of wing will do that. As you stall, then it starts to spin from the center. That felt pretty average to me in terms of stall resistance and the stall point. Big ears still flop around a little bit like the XALPS 1 with bigger ears in. It gets a little bit more stable. Bit of bar on, full bar, releasing that a little bit, and it's still flapping around. It's okay, but that's still with bar on and it's coming out. So I expect it's going to fight you a little bit to keep it in when you're trying to race on bar. That's fine, it's adequate. Asymmetric. Okay, now those sort of things really don't tell you much about a wing. I'm not high enough here to risk doing anything that would cravat, so I can't really do anything that's going to show you much. I just do that to get a feeling of the wing for how easy it is to pull in and how easy it is to reinflate. And you get a little bit of a feeling of the stability as you do that, but it's not an EN test. So do some more of your pitch control again. So there again, you're just coming down on the brakes, letting it climb out, letting it dive forward. That's cycle 1. Cycle 2, you put a bit of brake in, give it a big dive, and you kind of feel how much energy it builds up and how much it shoots. And I'd say, based on what I felt there, that's pretty much average for the class. It's fine, it's not particularly calmed, it's not dampened. You're definitely going to have to control the pitch when you're flying this wing in rough stuff. Now this is quite hard to analyze. I'm off on my own and I'm just thermaling and I'm trying to analyze what the wing's doing. There's nothing to compare with except for your experience, and you've never flown in exactly these conditions before, so it makes it quite hard to actually define what it's doing. And here I rely a lot on my emotions, really. I'm analyzing, I'm picking up what I'm feeling. Am I feeling happy? Am I feeling frustrated? Am I feeling calm? And that'll give me a clue as to what the glider's doing. It's putting me in that state. So I find just analyzing myself as I'm flying the wing tells me something about the character of the wing. Now, I'm feeling adventurous, I'm feeling calm and confident, and I'm feeling playful. Ah, isn't that lovely? These things are modern miracles. So at the end after flying, I try and sum up what I remembered, and it's basically just the highlights. You know, all of the wings are going to be good. Any wing that I fly that's manufactured, that's gone through testing, it's going to be fine. It's not going to be a problem with it. I'm trying to identify what unique things this wing does that will give you an idea of the character of the wing. Okay, so Omega XALPS 2 just had about an hour of fun at Mount Caburn. Conditions were quite light and punchy. The thermals were getting a bit of convergence, the wind was swinging around, so it was quite hard to get into the cores and to hold on to them. They were very narrow. That was quite good conditions to feel the glider out. Overall, I'd say it's got a very sweet turn. It feels like I could grab hold of the core with my hand and cut into it nicely, just hook it like that and go around. It turns tightly initially, but it does have a little bit of a balancing out moment. It's that advanced feeling of a balanced wing. It doesn't like bite in that tightly. That's quite nice. You might like to have something with a little bit more bite, but it turns very tightly. Once I had a small core that I was holding onto, I was able to turn in a very tight circle. So it's definitely not a planky glider. It's got life, energy. It feels fun in the air, and very similar to the XALPS 1. Had quite a lot of roll movement. I felt all of the air shifts in the air current. Quite a lot of activity that way. So if you like a glider to smoothen things out and dampen things down, and you're not going to get that with the XALPS 2. It's quite jumpy in jumpy air, put it that way. If the air is unsettled, the glider is going to be moving. That gives you the advantage of being able to feel which way the lift is. And there's little lift lines, I was able to follow them no problem. I felt connected with the wing and I was able to search ahead. I felt through the wing, I could sense what was ahead of the wing. And the whole time I felt very confident on the wing and very calm. It's a familiar feeling for me coming from the XALPS 1. It's a kind of feeling you don't have to worry about the glider, you don't have to manage it. So low management, although high feedback, I think. So you definitely need to be an experienced pilot for this sort of wing. It is a D-class wing, and I think this XALPS 2 has stepped up slightly in the D class. particularly on the launch. I think it's a little bit more challenging on the launch. It's a little bit more snaky. Testing those aspects at the limit and trying to see where I think that fits and does it match what the marketing for the wing is. That's really what I feel my job as a reviewer is to try and make sure that the manufacturers aren't pulling the wool over your eyes, that what they're saying about the wing is what I feel with the wing. And in the case of the x-alps 2, spot on. I mean, they're marketing it as a high-level adventure XC bivouac kind of hike and fly racing wing. It's well suited for that category of pilot, and there's nothing that would be inappropriate for that level of pilot, because it's pretty high class. Okay, the really hard part is trying to filter out the conditions, the effect of the conditions on the wing, because every day that you fly it feels slightly different, and I have to extrapolate from what I expect the conditions would have felt like on my normal wing and judge the new wing based on that, which is quite difficult because you never really know whether you're feeling the conditions or whether you're feeling the character of the wing. Over time, with experience, it gets a bit easier to filter out the conditions, but I must be honest, I'm still affected by what the air is like on the day, and different characteristics of the wing will come out in different conditions. So although it is good to fly a wing in many different conditions to get a complete picture and a sort of definitive, final, authoritative review, it's quite possible to fly a wing for 1 hour and get a real feeling of the character. I found that the character comes out in the first 5 minutes of flying the wing, and then after that is just kind of finessing that review and finding maybe small points to further define the character. Overall, I think, you know, if you're thinking of hike and fly racing, I could highly recommend the x-alps range. The x-alps 1 and 2, they're incredibly light and pretty durable. I've had mine for quite a while. If you are racing or if you're doing adventure flying, it's a good solid wing that's easy to launch in very light conditions. It's challenging in strong wind because the wing is so light that it tends to flip up and want to invert, and the tips like to cravat. So that's my the only negative, I would say. You have to be careful in strong wind. It's a bit of a handful to manage. But the launch in strong wind is super easy because you just let the brakes go and it comes up on its own in a nice controllable arc. Because you're not pulling on the A's and getting that acceleration, the wing comes up in a very nice steady pull. So great adventure glider, very refined, but you need to know what you're doing if you step onto something like this. So yeah, that's it, all in a day's review. Short flight, got some height, messed around with the wing a bit, shared the character with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you get something out of these reviews and you can learn something just about the way that I'm analyzing the wing. Maybe that'll help you when you going out on a test flight. You can do some of these tests yourself to try and get a feeling for what kind of wing it is and what you're looking for. Cheers.